Welcome to How to Share, a podcast that celebrates how we inspire others by sharing our stories. I'm Wynne Leon, and in this episode, I'm with author and educator Nancy Shear. We talk about Nancy's fabulous memoir, I Knew a Man Who Knew Brahms, and we have a fantastic conversation about how sneaking in through the back door of the Philadelphia Orchestra opened so many fascinating doors in her life. Nancy was a teenager when she first went to the orchestra and knew she had to find a way to hear more. She tells some amazing stories about her determination and how it led to landing the job as the assistant librarian to the Philadelphia Orchestra at age 17. We get to ride along with Nancy to meet all the incredible people she got to know, such as the wonderfully charismatic conductor Leopold Stokowski, who starred in Disney's Fantasia, and the incredible cellist Mstislav Rostropovich. Nancy lets us in on so many fantastic aspects of the workings of an orchestra, and I revealed some of the ways her book changed how I listened to a performance. Her nerve, grit, and storytelling will leave you amazed and inspired. I know you'll love this conversation with the delightful Nancy Shear. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Wynne. I'm so happy to be with you today.
It's so fun to be with you and to meet you. Saying I was reading your book at Christmas time, and it had so many insights about music that when I found myself at a Christmas concert, I just was observing so many things that I hadn't focused in on before, like the tuning of the orchestra, the way they bowed, and more. And it just really deepened my ability to listen and my interest. Such a neat book.
That's beautiful. Thank you for telling me that, because that's really why I wrote it. One of the many reasons was just to enable people who want to listen differently, want to have more insight, want to know what's going on and why it's going on. But also, and I really mean this from the bottom of my heart, that if people don't want to listen that way, that carefully, and they just want to go into the concert hall, have a good time, that's fine too.
Right. It's a wonderful experience either way. So, this book, I Knew a Man Who Knew Brahms, is such a wonderful book about your life working in and around orchestras since you were a teenager, and this fascinating cast of characters that you worked with. Can you give us the elevator pitch?
I was very young, and someone gave me a ticket to the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I went to that one concert, and I was overwhelmed with the beauty of it. Just listening to that this was the Philadelphia Orchestra, no less. Mm-hmm. And listening to that was one of the great experiences of my life. And I decided to go back, and I didn't realize that I didn't have the $1.50. That's what the cheapest ticket was. And they started to give me passes, the woman at the box office. And I ran out of luck after a little while. And I found the stage door, and I stood there for several weeks on Fridays just to see if I could get into the concert. And what that led to was my meeting Eugene Normandy, who was the music director of the orchestra, going backstage, finding the route where I could bypass ticket takers and sneak into concerts. And I went backstage and I met all these fabulous people. They trained me in what's called orchestra library work, which is the preparation of scores for the conductor and parts for the orchestra. And that was it. And that led to a 60-year career in music. So by sneaking in, by not having the money to go to buy my way properly into concerts, it led to a beautiful career.
Right. With that, that's fascinating to follow that thread because, had you gone in the front door, you wouldn't have gotten that experience, right? You had to go in the back door to get the behind the scenes.
Yes, and that's one of the things that I really want to talk to young people about, and I'm hoping at some point to reach a young audience, because a lot of young people might think that because they or their parents don't have money, that there are doors that are closed to them, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways to get around that, and if you have no choice, then you make a life,
Mm-hmm.
and money is not necessary. In my case, I think it would have been detrimental because
Mm-hmm.
not having the money led to my going backstage and meeting all these people and eventually working in music.
Right. This door theme is so good because back doors, doors that are closed. I mean, we could plumb the depths of this analogy. But what's so fascinating to me is, we're talking about when you did this. It was the early '60s. I would imagine many of your friends were succumbing to Beatlemania, and here
Yeah,
you
I'm trying to
were.
remember. Beatlemania was what? Was right about the same
Hmm.
time. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
But it was after Elvis. And, just today, uh, just thinking about our time together, I thought, where is my Elvis LP? Elvis's Golden Records, and I've got it. It's right across the room. I found it today. I didn't know about the Beatles
Hmm.
while it was happening. I wasn't really a television watcher,
Hmm.
and I remember my friend Shelley came to my home and started talking about the Beatles, and I said, "What are they? Insects? What are they?" And I remember this vividly. And she said, no, she said it's spelled Deatles, like beat, the musical beat. I said, oh. So I listened to them, and it was okay. It was
Yeah.
nothing that to me was life changing. But decades later, I don't remember what the impetus was, but I listened to the Beatles, and it was just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized at that point, this too was
Hmm. Hmm.
great music. And what the Beatles did was so revolutionary and so wonderful, and just taking music on several different paths.
Right.
But I came to that much later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was 16, 15, 16 years old, it was classical music that I
Classical music.
really needed. I needed it and I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I love about the book is the way that you listen and describe music. Um, there's a passage that you write after one matinee that you attended, and you say that the music was more powerful than anything I've ever experienced. The music expressed joy, sadness, and longing. And there's another passage that, if you'll humor me, that you quote, and it was with the maestro, Stokowski, that later in his life, and you said, you were describing an evening with him, and you said, one evening, I saw how his imagination translated from one sensual context to another. After dinner, we sat next to each other at the table in front of the window, watching a blazing sunset burn itself out. He stared at it for a long while, then, without looking away, finally spoke. You can do that, he said quietly, through sound. Goosebumps erupted all over my body.
It still
So,
does.
yeah. So tell us why you think classical music matters, still matters.
I think to answer that, and I hope I'm not being kind of glib or Hallmark card or whatever, but I think classical music still matters, but you can ask why a flower matters, or
Mm-hmm.
why that sunset matters.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is truthfully that because it elicits a response in us,
Mm-hmm.
and something happens within us when we see something that we consider beautiful.
Right.
Um, and that's why. And yes, I think beauty still matters in this battered world
Mm-hmm.
and this difficult world. It matters. Now everybody has to find their own source or
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting next to Stokowski and watching his face looking out, and this was in the south of France. It was a Christmas time, 1974,
Mm-hmm.
and watching him looking out that picture window at this spectacular piece of nature and having him say, "You can do that with sound."
Mm-hmm.
It was just tremendous, and of course, I thought, oh yeah, blaring brass and woodwinds and we said to him something uh, about brass, and he said very quietly, "No, strings." And that again, it was a way of using tonal color
Mm-hmm.
to to not approximate, but to relate what that sunrise or sunset was
Mm-hmm.
doing and the response that it elicits from us.
Right.
So I think anything that holds beauty and awareness
Mm-hmm.
and helps us express ourselves and our humanity,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it matters. I think it
Right.
matters maybe more today than ever.
Right, right. I mean, it seems to me, I mean, what it seems to be touching on is that feeling of awe,
That's beautiful. I like that. Yes, you're
right?
absolutely right.
And whether it's in an orchestra and it's that shared communal sense of awe, it's
I
just,
hadn't thought of that word, and
yeah.
you are absolutely right.
Mm,
Thank you for that.
mm. And I love the way that you describe Leopold Stokowski because you write a lot about him. Can you tell us, just give us a little encapsulated a bit of his history because he was not the conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra when you first started, but you had, many, many interactions and stories.
Being born and raised in Philadelphia, he had left around 1940. So it was almost 20 years later that I became very aware of the orchestra, but I
Mm,
was super aware of him
mm,
because in Philadelphia, he was as close to the king of Philadelphia as
mm,
anybody ever was.
mm,
He had brought the Philadelphia Orchestra to world
mm,
global prominence
mhm,
through Fantasia in 1940,
mhm,
and a lot of people still have seen that movie and they remember not just the music, but Mickey Mouse walks up on the podium and he tugs at Stokowski's the leg of his pants, and he calls something Mr. Stokowski, Mr. Stokowski, and Stokowski bends down and says, "Hello, Mickey," and shakes hands with
mm.
Mickey Mouse. Well, not many conductors were willing to do that. I could
Right.
never picture someone like Toscanini, this great dignity. And
Yeah.
Stokowski had tremendous dignity too, but there
Hmm.
was a part of him that was concerned and that related
Hmm.
to everybody and cartoons and whatever the popular life was at that time. And that's all in his music too. That's one of the reasons that it appealed to the masses. The people who went to see Fantasia didn't just remember him and Mickey Mouse, but they remembered the music. And
Hmm.
that film opened the world of classical music to a lot of people. But Stokowski was really like a god, and he held himself that way. But for some reason, he fascinated me, and I really wanted to get to know him.
Hmm.
And it was all very innocent. He
Hmm.
just fascinated me as a person. And I waited outside the Academy of Music in Philadelphia for him to arrive
Hmm.
for a rehearsal. And it was a February day. It was freezing cold. Finally, his car drove up, and he
Hmm.
was extremely tall, and he was dressed in this long black coat, and he had white hair that was swept behind his ears, and a very heroic profile. He was awe-inspiring, but it didn't stop me. And I ran after him and I said, "May I come into your rehearsal?" I didn't know that nobody, or no, actually, I did know no one was permitted in that rehearsal.
Hmm.
Not the Philadelphia Orchestra staff, not the families of the players, no one.
Hmm.
But I thought, why not try? And I
Hmm.
remember I ran after him and I said, may I listen to your rehearsal? And he said, he took me into the entranceway and he said, you may come with on one condition.
Hmm.
And I said, what is that? And he said, you must come back after the rehearsal and tell me your impressions.
Hmm.
So there I was. I was the only person in a hall that seated almost 3,000 people. And I'm sitting there listening to Leopold Stokowski conduct the Philadelphia Orchestra. I mean, it doesn't doesn't get better than that, you know?
No, no. And from there, your relationship with him just deepened, and you tell so many great stories. I mean, and it just even they're just legendary. Like he played poker with Rachmaninoff.
Yeah,
And he also, knew cellist and conductor Rostropovich, and writing and sending letters to defend Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I mean, these are just incredible stories that you tell. You have a story that I'd love for you to share about Rostropovich, who you call Slava, right? Saying goodbye to Shostakovich when he leaves the
yeah,
Soviet Union.
yeah. Uh, that that was told to me. We all used to after Rostropovich's concerts. He didn't like to be alone, and that kind of excitement would continue at his apartment, which was right around the corner from Lincoln Center. And he'd say, after all the well wishers and the autograph seekers, everybody had left, he'd look at a couple of close friends and he'd say, "Children, you come with me," because he had this heavy Russian accent. And we'd follow him around the corner and we'd go up to his apartment, and there was a lot of, it was kind of alcohol soaked, and it was fun, and story after story after story. We all had good stories, but he told them very dramatically, and he told one about the great Russian composer Dmitri Shostakovich, who was in a way like a father to Rostropovich, and composed a number of works specifically for Rostropovich, who was a great cellist. And Rostropovich had defended Solzhenitsyn, and he knew he was probably going to be banned from the Soviet Union, which is exactly what happened. He paid a terrible price for supporting human rights and artistic expressiveness and freedom. What a lesson. And he told us this great story that Shostakovich was quite ill, and Rostropovich and he knew that Rostropovich might not return to the Soviet Union for, if ever, for a very long time. And they were saying goodbye to each other, and they were both sobbing, and they had their arms around each other, and to kind of calm Shostakovich down, and to comfort him, Rostropovich said, I play all of your symphonies. I play your symphonies all over the world. And through his sobs, Shostakovich said, do the fourth first. It was this little bit of practicality, that was just so touching and funny. Yeah, but the Fourth Symphony also was the one that Shostakovich composed. It was very heavily influenced by Mahler. So there was a lot of human emotion in that, and individuality and expressiveness. That's what the Soviets did not want. So that was yet another reason why, that was the symphony that would have been most difficult and most personal for Shostakovich, more difficult to take out to the masses. So I think that's another reason why but it was so charming. Do the fourth first.
Bringing that story full circle in that idea of artistic freedom and human
Yeah,
rights and oh wow,
yeah.
amazing.
We need some heroes today, you know?
Right. Right. Well, I would say, I mean, people who follow their thread and that's what reading this book and watching how you did that is amazing. I mean, from your pull to sneak into the orchestra as um to getting a job with the orchestra at age 17. Um you flew off to Moscow to check on Rostropovich after he wrote that letter in defense of Solzhenitsyn. Um, one of the other stories that I love that you did is you followed the kids from the International Youth Orchestra, to find out who their leader was and to get a job with them and then travel, with that was a great opportunity for travel. Um, creating your career as a broadcaster. I mean, it's stunning. And at the end, in the acknowledgments, you write, many friends and colleagues have asked if it has taken courage for me to live the life I've led. Surviving a troubled family, sneaking in where I didn't belong, starting and maintaining careers in New York City, taking constant risks. I've told them I never thought much about the fear because I was compelled to do those things. I was more concerned about not doing them, not having a productive and interesting life. What did require courage was writing this book. And
Yeah.
so, can you tell us more about how'd you find the courage to live this life, to whether it's writing the book or all the threads that you followed?
When I look back on all this, none of it took courage because, except for writing the book, and I'll share that with you.
Yeah.
But to go backstage, I was desperate to hear the concerts,
Hmm.
desperate. So going in through the stage door and sneaking in, what did I have to lose? At one point, yeah, I got frightened. I thought, oh my God, what if the usher calls the police? What if
Hmm.
he finds out that I don't have a ticket and they call the Philadelphia police and I get arrested? I mean, a kid will think, a
Right.
young person will think about this, but uh, I was desperate to get in there, and I did, and it worked out beautifully. Going off to Russia was really, my mother was terrified that she would never see me again.
Hmm.
This was 1970. It was
Right.
December 18th, 1970. I think it was a couple of months earlier they had the Leningrad trials, and this is, if I remember correctly, when a group of Soviet Jews tried to, or planned to, hijack a plane to go to Israel. It was related to that. And here I was, a young Jewish American, and it was the height of the Cold War,
Hmm.
Brezhnev. The relations were horrendous between
Hmm.
the Soviet Union and the United States. And it was freezing cold. It was December.
Right.
And
Discover.
Russia, we're talking about
Yeah.
Russia, which was one of the reasons that I wanted to go. This was a fabulous adventure, and
Hmm.
I was looking for somebody I cared deeply about. Rostropovich was a Soviet dissident, and nobody knew in America whether he was dead or alive. We didn't know what price he was paying for being this this defender of human rights.
Hmm.
Could have been pretty bad. They could have sent him off to Siberia, and it was bad for him. But so I decided I was going to go find him. And
And
yeah,
you did, which
and
is
I
a
did. I, I,
yes.
I did find him.
I,
Yeah, but I really think, and as far as sneaking into concerts, I want to make something really clear because I don't want people to think, oh, she cheated the Philadelphia Orchestra out of the cost of a ticket. I didn't have that money, period. So it
right.
wasn't a question about sneaking in. I couldn't pay the price.
Hmm.
So the seat was going to be empty anyway. I didn't have the money. So if I figured if somebody was there and they sat in it, so much better for everybody.
Hmm.
The hall would be more full, everybody would win. But it wasn't like I made a choice not to pay. I
Hmm.
couldn't. So all of these things, it was just part of life, and I didn't see any reason not to do them. And I think the great lesson is to, if you can, I'm not talking about making stupid choices, but if you can live a life of courage
Mm-hmm.
and meaning,
Yeah.
that's the reward. The
Right.
reward isn't what you can buy, at least
Mm-hmm.
unless it's an airplane ticket or something.
Right.
I never figured out a way to sneak onto an airliner. I could get into the concert hall. I
Right.
couldn't sneak into the air to an
Well,
airliner.
but you figured out other ways to make that travel work.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean, and when you got a job with the Philadelphia Orchestra, you figured out how to get into those spaces, responsibly. So it's not that you snuck onto things for just the thrill of it, as you said.
But you also mentioned the International Festival of Youth Orchestras, and the story was that I was in London. I was on my way to visit Stokowski,
Mm-hmm.
and I never sat in hotel lobbies ever. I was always out,
Mm-hmm.
doing things. But this one time, I was sitting in the lobby, and a voice came over the loudspeaker and said, "Will all members of the International Festival of Youth Orchestras please come to room 12?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, what musician is not going to go up to see what it's all about? Well, I mean, why not? So I took the elevator up, and I went to room 12.
Mm-hmm.
And when I opened the door, there were about 100 young people tuning their instruments. And I saw an opportunity.
Right.
So I went over to one of the kids and I said, "Who's in charge?" And they pointed to a lovely woman. Name was Nicola Wallace, I remember. And I walked over to her and I said, "Do you need an orchestra librarian?" And I said, I worked with Philadelphia. She said, "When you get home, send me your resume." She gave me her card. 3 summers, I was in England, Scotland, and Wales, and had a fabulous time and
Right.
met some of my closest friends. One, after all those years, I just talked to her yesterday. I'm in very close touch.
That
So
is
there's a
wonderful.
lesson in that. There's a
Well,
lesson.
and we circled back to the door theme because
Right.
you walked through that door. I mean, I think, your contention that it didn't take courage. I mean, walking through doors, I'm answering the knock of opportunity when it happens is a courage in and of itself.
Yeah, but again, think why not? What is to
Yeah.
lose?
What is to
You know,
lose?
we're all human beings. I was
Hmm.
walking into a room of human beings,
Hmm.
and that is not. I don't see where that takes a lot of courage. There's nothing really to be frightened of. Let's take worst case scenario. Somebody would say, "I'm sorry, you are not authorized to be in here. Please leave." So I'd leave. I'd be no worse off. But
Right.
I think to take advantage of and have your imagination perceive these opportunities
Hmm.
and to take advantage of them, why not?
Hmm. Hmm. So, but you were going to say more about the courage to write the book.
Yeah, that did. You know, when I was growing up, there was a tremendous stigma about mental and emotional illness.
Hmm.
And my mother was profoundly ill,
Hmm.
and it affected my life to this day. I was an only child, and children of compromised parents, whether they're alcoholics or whether they're mentally ill or whatever the problems are,
Hmm.
it changes the shape of not only your life but who you are.
Hmm.
So that was a big secret in our family, and it was a secret I kept even from my friends didn't know, our neighbors didn't know, members of the family did, but for me to be the holder of family secrets and then to release them, that's where the courage really came in. And to
Hmm.
face my own fears and my own feelings about my family. My father was very abusive and very
Hmm.
difficult. And to put that out into the world, and you feel things when you're writing about them,
Hmm.
it generates a lot of the original emotions. And
Right.
that can be very scary stuff.
Very.
So
Right.
so
Right.
that did take a lot of courage. And I'm getting emails and letters from people who go to my website and talk about their experiences too as children.
Mhm.
One or two, I think it was two people had alcoholic parents, and and it was a real meeting of the mind and the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, writing the book was not what people think. They think it's a release and it's therapy.
Mm-hmm.
One author friend of mine said, "Well, it'll put you into therapy. It's not therapy on its own." But I wondered, I didn't. I mean, I'm not being morbid, but I really didn't want to die with the information that I had accumulated all these
Mm-hmm.
years about, mainly about people and humanity, and most
Mm-hmm.
of all about my beloved classical music.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to write this book. I
Right.
had no choice. I had to
Right.
do it.
Right. Well, we love the choices that you share with us by writing the book about the choices you made all through your life, and I think they're courageous. I think they're delightful. This book is just so much fun to read, and as I said, it deepened my appreciation for so many things, music and opportunity.
Well, thank you for that. That's the best reward I could have had from writing this book.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there
Thank
anything
you.
I should have asked that I didn't ask?
No, I think the only other subject was moving to New York, and
Mm,
I
mm-hmm.
really, I just, put one line in the book about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the story that, I may write a sequel and
Mm-hmm.
talk about moving to New York. Um,
Yeah, I think because you cover, I mean, in detail, sort of life up until your early 30s,
right. I was
right?
34 when I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
so, great. Well, if you do that, I think it'll be a wonderful book. And you have so
Thank,
much other of your productive and meaningful life that we would
thank
love
you
to hear
so much. No, you covered all the bases.
about. Oh, great. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for listening. Our music was written for us by the incredible duo of Jack Campora and Rob Koenig. For show notes and more great inspiration, see avitiva.com, AVITIVA.com.